from Mike Moore Media, Ask Your Candidates, with local, state, and national candidates in the upcoming election. And today, Jeremy Spike Cohen, political activist, entrepreneur, podcaster, and Libertarian candidate for Vice President of the United States of America. Hey, Spike.
Hey, Mike. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it very much. Let's start. The focus now is on you and Joe Jorgensen, presidential candidate. Let's start and get a definition and really tell us what the Libertarian platform is all about, Spike.
Well, long story short, Mike, is that the Libertarians believe that the American people do best when we are the most free. We have seen how the cost of living has spiraled out of control in this country. We didn't need a pandemic to tell us that we had a health care problem in this country. We didn't need the murder of George Floyd to show us that we had a growing problem with police brutality. We didn't need any of the problems that we're facing this year with the lockdowns or anything else to show us that we had problems economically in this country. We have seen what Republicans and Democrats have done with their exclusive control of every lever of power in government for this country for over 160 years. They've used it to rob the American people of their power, of their freedom, and, of course, of their money in order to enrich themselves and the well-heeled, politically connected billionaire cronies who have bought and paid for them to be in office. What Libertarians believe is we want to dismantle those oppressive and tyrannical, unconstitutional systems, take that power and that freedom and that money, and put it back in the hands of the American people where it always belongs.
You know, I hear the word freedom a lot when I'm talking to libertarians, and your program, My Fellow Americans, you're getting a lot of mileage with that, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, that is the core of our message. We believe in the freedom of the American people being the best way for us to solve the problems we're facing, and in many cases, not even have problems that we're facing in the first place. A perfect example is this pandemic. We wouldn't be facing this pandemic nearly as badly as we are right now if the federal government hadn't banned healthcare workers from testing and treating COVID patients for the first 2 months that it was here. That was crucial lost time, and we don't know how many hundreds of thousands of lives will end up being lost as a direct result of healthcare workers and the American people in general not being free to do what they needed to do. In that case, healthcare workers doing their job of saving people's lives. And we see it in every aspect of our lives. When people are less free and when we are instead robbed and have bad systems that were designed to be friendly to cronies and harmful to us imposed upon us, we do poorly. And of course we would do poorly under a system like that. We believe that freedom is the best way to move forward.
I know COVID is on everyone's mind as you're out and about, and I'm following you because you are all over the country. And tell us where you are right now, Spike, by the way.
I'm currently in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
You're getting a lot of feedback from people. What are you hearing out there? What are people telling you about how they feel where we are in the country today?
Absolutely, Mike. I've spoken with, Joe and I both actually have spoken with thousands of people across this country. We have visited something like 46 states so far, and what we're hearing over and over again is largely the same thing. People are frustrated at how things are going. They're frustrated by this pandemic. They're frustrated by the lockdowns. They're frustrated by bad programs that have made lives harder. They're frustrated by the fact that the cost of living is spiraling out of control far faster than their wages or incomes are rising to grow with it. They're frustrated that they're increasingly having to run up debt just to be able to make ends meet. They're frustrated at a government that presume the authority to be able to tell them whether or not they are essential or not, whether or not they should be allowed to try to provide for themselves and their families. And they're sick of it. They want their power back, they want their money back, and they want to be free. And just as importantly, they want to have an actual viable choice that they can vote for. They're being told this false narrative that you either have to vote Democrat or you have to vote Republican, and any other vote is, quote-unquote, a wasted vote. And they recognize, Mike, that a wasted vote is voting for the same people who created this mess and hoping that this time they fix it.
Let me give you a couple of words, Spike, and you give us your input. Social Security.
Social Security is a system that was promised to people in order for them to be able to retire. Unfortunately, it was modeled as a Ponzi scheme, and we are now seeing the results of that. It is becoming increasingly unsustainable and is eventually going to run out of other people's money. And when that happens, it's going to leave tens or even hundreds of millions of retirees in a lurch as a result. Our plan is to use the 6.2% solution, which would take a very long time to explain, but the long story short is that it allows people who are on Social Security or want to remain on Social Security to be able to stay on it and be sustained on it, while also allowing people who want to opt out and instead invest their money privately to be able to do so, and for their employers to be able to match that funding into paying directly into Social Security to be able to keep it solvent. It's a very complex program, but the long story short is if you want to stay on Social Security or if you're already receiving benefits, you will always be protected. If you want to opt out, you will be able to do so.
Okay, that's good news. Opioid epidemic.
Oh, the opioid epidemic is thanks to the war on drugs. It is illegal if you are addicted to drugs to be able to get help. If you're addicted to something illegal, including prescription opioids that you shouldn't be getting or to heroin, you can't really get help unless you want to risk jail time. And many people who would like to help you can't help you. Organizations can't help you unless they want to risk jail time as well. And so it has led to people who are addicts who often have to sell the drugs in order to be able to keep their addiction going. Instead of it being treated like a health issue, which it is, it's being treated like a criminal issue. And so they end up in prison. It ruins their lives. They come out, they have a criminal record, and they often still remain addicted on the drugs they were addicted to. It's ruining lives, decimating neighborhoods. It needs to end. Also, I've spoken to so many people who have been able to get off their opioid addiction by using cannabis, which has also helped them with other, trauma and mental health issues that they've suffered as a result. Unfortunately, the cannabis is still illegal in most parts of the country. We believe in ending the war on drugs so that addicts can, and others can get the treatment that they need, so that our communities can be safer, so that we can finally get rid of these cartels that have been empowered by the war on drugs, and kick out the corrupt government officials that have been pushing it forward.
Okay. Another hot word, immigration, Spike.
Well, we've seen what's going on right now. We've seen that what the founders intended, which was people who wanted to come to America to take part in the American dream, being able to come here in a streamlined process, that has been completely corrupted in the last several decades. And it has empowered coyotes, it has empowered corrupt government officials, and it has hurt immigrants. And frankly, it's hurt every American living in this country. When my ancestors came here to escape genocide in Eastern Europe, if they had come here and the current restrictions that are in place had been in place back then, they would have been put in a camp and then eventually sent home where they would have been murdered. And I wouldn't be here. And many of us who are listening to this right now would not be here if when our ancestors got here, these restrictions had been in place. These immigration restrictions that are in place have led to a massive surveillance state on all of us. It has led to all of us having to submit all of our information to get permission from a federal database every time we try to get a job or get a loan or get a mortgage or in some states apply for rent or be able to get utilities put in your name. It has created a massive government superstate, and it has also empowered human smugglers by creating a market for them to bring people in. We believe in returning back to something similar to what we had during the Ellis Island era, where people can come here, they can say who they are, they can say what country they come from, they can be checked for diseases, and then they can take part in the American dream.
Let's talk about our veterans and the VA, Spike.
I am sick and tired of seeing people who have signed up and sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the American people from all enemies, foreign and domestic. They go overseas to fight, and when they come home, often with health issues, they are being subjected to the worst form of health care in this country, the VA. It's no secret that government-run health care is terrible, and you can ask anyone who is having to be victimized by the VA about that. What we found is that it would cost less money to simply give the money directly to the veterans, the money that they earned, so that they could go get their own health insurance or their own health sharing plan or their own health savings account, or whatever they want to put it into to fully pay for the cost of their health care that they need. No longer would they have to spend years or decades proving their quote-unquote percent of disability before they'd be able to get care. No longer would they have to pick from just a small handful or even one or two facilities in their state and travel several hours. No longer would they have to wait weeks, months, sometimes years to get an appointment. They would be able to get health care just like anyone else with insurance. Not only would they be able to get the care they need when they needed it without proving they needed it, not only would we see a reduction in all of the terrible health ills that are ailing veterans every day, not only would we see a reduction in suicides because veterans would get the care that they need, but we'd also be able to save billions of dollars by simply giving them the money directly instead of continuing this ridiculous government ration healthcare system.
I certainly appreciate your comments on all of these important topics. We've got about 3 minutes left, Spike. That's your time to kind of wrap us up, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I appreciate you having me on, and folks, I appreciate you listening. Like I said before, we didn't need the pandemic or the lockdowns or anything that's happened this year to tell us that we're in a lurch. We're in a mess. Things are getting worse, and there's no good reason for it. If we were free to be able to do what we wanted to, empowered with our own money back and our freedom to be able to work together to solve the problems that we are facing, with all of the burdens and barriers that they have put in place to make our life increasingly harder, all of that removed so that we can work together every single day, then we would do far better. That's what libertarians believe. That's what Joe and I believe. That's what Stephen DeFiore, who's running for governor in your state, believes. That's what Shannon, who's running for Senate in your state, believes. We believe that the people do best when they are the most free. And we are working with the people in North Carolina and across the country. We want to build a future that is safer and freer and happier and healthier for ourselves and for our children and their children moving forward. So I invite you to join us by going to joe20.com and finding out more about our campaign, and also by going to lp.org and finding out more about the Libertarian Party and our vision for America.
I appreciate your vision. I saw in some of your material, Spike, I believe that, the number over 230 elected libertarians across the country. So when someone says, well, it's a wasted vote, it's not for those 230 plus, is it?
Absolutely not. And we add more to that list every single election cycle. We do better than the one before it.
Spike, I appreciate it. Have a good time around the country, and thank you for sharing your time with us today. I know you're awfully busy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you again.
Okay. That's our guest on this segment of our Meet Your Candidates program with Jeremy Spike Cohen, Libertarian candidate for Vice President of the United States. This program is paid for by the Libertarian Party of Rockingham County. Get more information on Facebook, Libertarian Party of Rockingham County, facebook.com/RockLPNC.